Okay, so what we're going to do now is solving equations that are not quadratic. So quadratic meaning like a squared. So if we had, for example, x squared equals 4, there's actually two ways we could do this. What I usually do is bring everything to one side, and then we either factor or use the quadratic equation. So this is a difference of squares, and our answers would be -2 or 2. So those are our answers. We can also do this same question, x squared equals 4, by taking the square root. The problem with taking the square root of both sides is that we get 2, but not the -2. So actually, when you take a square root, you have to say plus or minus for it to work out, and people often forget to do that, so that's a little bit tricky. So there are two answers usually with a quadratic, with a squared, and so do think about that if you use this second method. Now, what if the question were a cube, like x cubed minus 1 equals 7, for instance? Well, we can't factor easily cubes without using long division, and we're not going to do that. So let's move the 1 over to the other side, and we'll say x cubed is equal to 7 plus 1, which is 8. Maybe you know the answer to that already, what number cubed is equal to 8, but to actually solve this, you would do the cube root of both sides. And when it's an odd root, we don't need the plus or minus. There is only one answer, and the answer to that is x equals 2. So what if we had something like this? X to the 1/3 is equal to -6. Well, 1/3 is a square root, or is a cube root already. And what we can do to both sides, actually, let me write it on a new line. What you would do to both sides to get rid of a cube, it is the third power. And why is that? Because that will give me 3 over 3, which is 1. -6 cubed is -6 times -6 times -6. 216. So here we have x is equal to negative 216. 3 negatives make a negative, and that would be your answer. Okay, let's try another one. What if I said x to the -1/4 is equal to 2? Now that's a negative instead, and it's a fraction. So to solve fractions, we want to cross multiply, but we don't want negative exponents. So what we might do here is rewrite this. And then what? Well, whenever the x is on the bottom of a fraction, we cross multiply so that it's on top. So we're going to multiply this. Actually, let's put the 2 down below and the x to the 1/4 up top. And then what do you think? I'm just going to rewrite this the other way. So what do you think we would do here? Well, 1/4, to get rid of that, we multiply by we take the power to the 4th power. This will give 4 over 4, which is 1. And 1/2 to the 4th power is 1 to the 4th, which is 1, over 2 to the 4th, which is 16. So x is equal to 1 over 16. Now I'm just going to put a little line here. Let's say you have x to the -1/3 equals -3. Pause the video and try to do this before I give the answer. Follow along the steps that I just did for the -1/4 and see if you can get the right answer. So you go ahead and pause it and try, and then unpause it, and you can watch the solution. So just like the last one, let's make this a positive 1/3, and then let's cross multiply. And then I'm just going to write this the other way because I like the x on the left. So this is -1/3. Remember, you don't need the negative on the bottom. And then you cube both sides. So this is x to the 3 over 3, which is 1. And this is negative 1/3 cubed. So x is equal to negative cubed is negative, and a 3 cubed, 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So did you get the right answer? Now, what if I had x to the 4 equals 20? How would we solve that? So here we do, so it's a 4th power, so we take the 4th root of each side. And so this will be x is equal to the 4th root of 20. And does 20, is that a 4th root? Let's look. 20 is 2 times 10. 10 is 2 times 5. There's not 4 of any factors there, so this is be as far as we would go. You could put the answer in your calculator and get an answer. But 1 to the 4th, or the 4th root of 1 is 1. And then the next 4th root, like 2 to the 4 is 16. The 4th root of 16 is 2. And then to get a 3 to the 4th power is 81. That's the next one that we would know. So we know the 4th root of 1. We know the 4th root of 16 is 2. We know the 4th root of 81 is 3. And this is 20. This falls somewhere in here. It's close to 2 if you did it on your calculator. But you can just leave it like that. Now, what's the problem with this? Any ideas? So think back to the very first thing I did up here. The very first one I did, which was x squared. And I said, if we take the square root of both sides, what do we need to remember to make sure we get all of the solutions? That plus or minus. Any even powers. So like an x squared, x to the 4, x to the 6, x to the 8. Even powers, you must remember plus or minus. So that here was an odd power, and this was a root. We don't worry about roots. This was a root. We don't worry about roots. This was a root. We don't worry about roots. But this is an even power. So what should we have remembered? To put plus or minus here. So there's 2 answers, plus 4th root of 20 and minus the 4th root of 20. So both of those answers, when we do the 4th power, we'll get positive 20 as our answer. Okay, so let's just look at that again. If we were doing x to the 8 equals 256, then we take the 8th root of both sides. But because it's an even power, we need to remember the plus or minus. And 256, let's see if the 8th root works. So 256 divided by 2 is 128. 128 will divide by 2. 64. 64 divides by 2. 32 divides by 2. 16 divides by 2. And 8 divides by 2. And 4 divides by 2. Now let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The 8th root of 256 is 2. If you put 2 to the 8th power on your calculator, you get 256. And if you put negative 2 to the 8th power in your calculator, you get 256. And that's, you need to remember the plus or minus. Where do we not have to remember the plus or minus? If it is a odd root. So with an odd root, you would take the 5th root of both sides. this will be just whatever this works out to be. And I did work it out on my calculator. It divides by 3. So 243 divided by 3 is 81. 81, 27. And you'll see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 3. 3 to the 5 is 243. Okay. And I think that you could probably manipulate anything. Let's put a negative exponent. Let's say we have x to the negative 4 is equal to 1 over 81. So it has a negative exponent, so let's make it into a fraction. And then let's cross multiply. I'm just going to flip it around. X to the 4, that's an even root, so I need to remember to put plus or minus when I do the root. So x equals plus or minus, I think 81 is the 3. Plus or minus 3 will work in the original equation.